Hello and welcome to Content Strategy Collective Live 2021. I'm Jeff Coyle, the co-founder and chief strategy officer for MarketMuse. And today we're going to be talking about future-proofing your content strategy. But first, thank you to all of the sponsors. Go check out the Expo Hall in Hop-In. It's really amazing. Verblio, Crowd Content, both have booths, as well as there's a MarketMuse one with some special offers. And thank you so much to the speakers as well. The speakers really make this possible, whether it's the general sessions or the workshops where we're really digging in and getting into the details on specific workflows and patterns and things that get things done more successfully. But all those people make this possible, and thank you so much to them and everything that they've contributed. We owe you big. For future-proofing your content strategy, there's 4 things to think about. Objective measurements. Adding objective measurements into your workflows. So what can I measure? What is subjective today that I can make objective? Things like measuring the quality and comprehensiveness of content. Things like measuring the authoritativeness on a topic. How well you cover the buyer journey. Those are things that can be turned into objective measurements. Examining the processes related to content and finding the manual components. Manual processes kill teams. We've got to get the manual processes and put them in the right automation. Valuing content thoughtfully, understanding that there's people behind content, understanding that there is a process for understanding how content works together. Sites, sections, pages, entire sites can be about particular things. And it's very important that we exhibit expertise throughout the buy cycle, throughout the learner journey, depending on how our sites are structured. And then we need to be able to communicate the true cost of content within our organization. It's not just how much you paid the person who wrote it. We're going to get into the details there and how we can think critically about communicating the true cost of content all the way down to opportunity cost, content efficiency, and other things. Because those hidden costs, or even if they're known, they can be time sucks. And how do we know how to communicate those things to make sure our teams are on the same page? Valuing content is the first step. So in the last few years, most teams have gone through this journey of communicating the value, but unfortunately, they stop short of connecting those to people, to teams, and to topics, most importantly, because collectives of content all work together for all boats to rise on sites. It's not just at the page level. It's not just the direct value of those content items either. So it's not really just about the leads. It's not just about the traffic. It's not just about the engagement. It's about all your teams having shared understanding of the entire company's KPIs when it comes to content. And that one page can contribute a lot of things. It may just contribute as a support content item that bridges the gap that you might have in that buyer journey or that learner journey. Or it may be that honeypot. It gets you all the leads. It gets you all the entrances. Or it may be something in between. But you got to understand not just the page level value, because I like to call it a tooth without a jaw. Sometimes people will value only the end of the game, the landing page. But that trust was built. The nurturing was done. The entrance was achieved throughout that collection of content that tells the story that you are an expert, that your business is an expert. And all of those things combine to create that journey. So when you, frankly, belittle the value of content and only point out that it's the one page that generated your KPI, it does a disservice to the entire team. And it decreases the trust throughout the organization. And you have to align that value to your investment as well. So when you're making the investment, do you know what types of contributions it is going to produce? Do you know the types of things that this content is going to be to your company? Not treating the content item like only a baseball card, but treating it as the part of the team that's all going to contribute to the win. And the goal is to communicate that coverage of the entire buy cycle, of all the intents that prospects or that readers or subscribers care about. It exhibits your expertise and completes the journey, no matter where in the funnel, no matter where in that journey that content item may live, or maybe even multiple parts. And when that happens, all those boats rise. Whether it's on your familiar awareness phase content or your capture content or somewhere in between, you're getting somebody to the point where they understand that you're the source. So the next time they think about this topic, they're thinking about you. The costs. The costs are the things that are frequently forgotten. And being real about the cost is still one of the largest signals of content strategy and marketing maturity, content marketing maturity. And negative signal one is when you ask somebody how much content costs and they just quote the amount they paid specifically for that draft or for that writer. Because there's so many different things. We've examined hundreds of internal costing processes. And here are some of the missing pieces. It's not just how much you paid for that item. That can be very painful to the rest of the organization that's contributing to production, that's contributing to updates, that's contributing to the overall success of the rest of your site. So what contributes to the cost of content? Some of the things to think about, takeaways for your journey through the Content Strategy Collective Live and listening to all the sessions that you want to take away and really break down your process and focus on automation. The first is that bottom left of this screen, efficiency. Content efficiency is the difference between how much content you publish, how many content updates, enhancements, optimization, expansions that you execute, and how many of them achieve the shared understanding of goals for your organization. That's the efficiency. Unfortunately, this number is more like 10% for most teams. So you create 10 articles to get one to perform. That's tremendously inefficient. But what does it do to the cost? Take a step back. What does it do? It means it costs 10x to get results for your content items. So even just that, if you take $100 content item average or $200 content item average, and you're only 10% efficient, you're already at $2,000 for those true costs of content, true cost of effective content outcomes. It's not about those outputs, it's about the outcomes. But then you get an opportunity cost. What if those content items were successful 40% of the time, 35% of the time, through proper planning and prioritization, through proper briefing and outlining, through more impactful content descriptions and explicit details and understanding of the buyer journey? That opportunity cost is a killer. It's a hidden killer because your opportunity cost shows you that, hey, this month we could have been double, but we weren't. What we published was only successful at 10%. So when you really identify that opportunity cost, it takes that 2,000 number, turns it into 4,000 and higher. How many updates is this content item going to have to go through? It's very important to know when you first publish a content item, do you expect to have to update it and at what cadence and who those resources are? Are you going to have to find those resources outside or do you have them on staff? And what is the cost of those items? Are you updating proactively to make this page better? Or are you updating reactively because the intent changed? There's changes in the news. There's changes in what's going on. It's no longer valid. It's no longer correct. It's no longer impactful. All those things need to go into your content planning because they're going to be costing against this particular content item. It may lead to even more success and it may make this page a winner. So you want to make sure you account for that so that you don't have these hidden costs. The last one is the feedback loop, and this is the easiest one for most teams to incorporate into their costing process because it's about really how many people touch this thing. If you're thinking about it as an assembly line, which you probably shouldn't, how much went into the research phase for it? How much went into the prioritization phase? How much went into the writing and assignment and briefing process, creating that process, creating that single source of truth for the writer? When the writer wrote it, was there a feedback loop? Was there a dreaded SEO edit? Was there some other edit? What's the production layer? What's the post-publish evaluation and troubleshooting? What's the enhancement and updates? And what's the daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly assessment or content audit costs? All those things need to go in to your assessment of the overall cost to create a true, clear mirror on how much it costs for you to truly get a content item out the door. And when you do this effectively, when you have a real number in mind, you'll start to think about efficiency more because efficiency is needed so that you're not burning that money, right? If you're at 10%, like I said, and you're just firing out, you're going to really want to get to about 30, 40, 50% when you realize what that true cost of content is. And then the next piece, something to take away for this week is let's break down our process. Let's break it down, the manual parts. We've got to get those manual parts and remove them as much as we can. We've got to automate them. We've got to divert those resources to do things that they want to do things that they're good at. So if you've got writers, if you've got subject matter experts doing keyword research, doing SEO analysis, doing things like that, doing analytics assessments, they shouldn't be doing those things, especially if they're slow, especially if they're manual. There's ways to automate, there's ways to incorporate things. Because when we evaluate teams, here's where the breakdown lies. It's about 10 hours to 20 hours of human labor for every piece of content created, for every update motion. You might not have examined all the pieces of the puzzle here, so you may thinking, hey, that sounds high. This is what we see. But we see these things being optimized. We see these things being broken down and tweaked to turn into 5, 4, 6, 7 hours per piece, and even better on some really, really highly functioning optimized teams. And writing, briefing, and editing are the places that most teams can improve from the first 30 to 60 days. Do you have a briefing process? How manual is it? What is your writing process? Is it coached by a single source of truth, like a content brief, or is it not? Are you predicting the outcomes before you even start to press keys or put pen to paper? And then what does that editing process look like? What are your average feedback loops? How painful is that editing? How painful is the editing process, or is it very streamlined? All things to really be thinking about, because automation is the path to people doing more about what they're good at. And what they're good at may not be actually writing, but they may be doing some writing. What they're good at, the whole entire team, the content strategy team, the SEO team, what they want to be doing is being more surgical, being more strategic. If you're at the Content Strategy Collective listening to this, you most likely want to be more strategic with the content you create. And that's because there's more time needs to be spent on content inventory, on content auditing, on evaluating what you should do and how you should prioritize and the metrics that you should prioritize based on. And when you get to that point with your team where you're thinking about all the ways that you're evaluating content for authoritativeness, for expertise, to fill the buyer journey, to approach beginners as well as experts on this specific topic, you stop talking about pages as units. You start talking about your site and your site sections as living things that coach people throughout the buyer journey, that coach people through the learning journey. And you start to prioritize based on exhibiting expertise and understanding that prioritization based on authority, prioritization based on understanding how to plan. It's giving people the why, and you start to get more budgets. And you're saying, I'm writing this article because of this. We're writing this collection of content because of that. And those thises and that's are objective. They're measured, and then they might have some tuning based on your subjective perspective. And that's when you start winning more success more often. That's when you start to become more efficient because you're spending more time strategic and less time manual processes in the content workflow. And that's when your team starts to be able to update more content more of the time. The biggest pain point on large publishers or large content items, or large content sites, is that they're not going back and strategically updating and surgically optimizing, enhancing, and expanding content. Freeing up more resources to be thinking critically will find you the time to optimize more. When you optimize more, you win more. And you got to future-proof this workflows. You got to be thinking about the value. You got to be thinking about the manual processes. You got to be thinking about the costing and ways that you can improve at each stage of this process so that you can put these whys together, these plans. Most plans, about 90% of them fit into one of these 4 buckets. There's other ones, right? You have e-commerce, product pages, you've got migration plans, but for the most part, they all fit into these processes. And quick wins are the easiest one for teams to understand. What can I do today to create content that's going to be successful? What can I do today what should I update that's going to grow the quickest, or going to add the support structure to this cluster or to this section that I know it needs to update for intent, to update for correctness? Those are the quick wins. But there's also goal-based. I want to own this topic. How do I get there? I want to win more. I want to improve my efficiency. I want to grow leads from this segment. I want to grow leads for this specific topic or this specific industry. But there's also risk. Competitors create risk. They publish on the same topic. They publish more. They publish better content, and you need to react. Or maybe you just have a page that gets too much traffic, right? It gets 90% of your traffic, it's 80% of your traffic. You're just afraid that it might go up and down. Or you want to figure out how to avoid that risk, how to support that page so that it isn't such a liability. And kind of a joke, right? The page that gets the most traffic on your site is often something people are cheering about, but it's also quite a liability if it's a huge percentage of the traffic. How do you get through and build plans and say, hey, we need to build this support structure around this page? And someone says, why? And you say, we need to be less reliant on it, right? We want to create this cluster of content about this topic. Why? Because we need to cover the entire buyer journey. We need to cover advanced users because those are in our prospect pool. We need to focus on this industry. That's the why. And now quick wins. We need to update this page. Why? Because we have a lot of authority on it. And I know it's going to grow. Why? Because it's not up to date. Why? Because the intent on this topic has changed. The market's changed. The technology has changed, whatever the case may be. And then the last why is really because you have to. In some organizations, you're just taking orders and you're just writing what's asked of you to write. So you receive a brief, you're writing the article. Someone tells you to go write this page, you have to go do it. Well, making a pledge today to yourself and to your organization that you're going to put your best foot forward every time you hit publish is what we want. So if I've been asked to write a content item, regardless of who requested it, I want to make sure that it's equal to or better than all of my competitors for the focus topic from the standpoint of quality and comprehensiveness. Put my best foot forward so that next time budgets come around, I can reveal these whys and get more money for strategic and surgical wins. And I also want to be able to predict performance before I publish. Gosh, what does that mean? It means that I want to know what my efficiency rates are. I want to know with confidence that if we publish this article or this collection of articles, here's the value that it's likely to yield. If I put out the best page, take away those variables, highest quality, subject matter expert-driven content, I'm very confident that these are going to be the outcomes. I've got to bring that so that I'm not perceived as a content publisher, as a content marketing team, as a content strategist, as a crapshooter. I truly know how much content is going to yield when I write it. So, what it also does is it empowers me to say, actually, I don't believe this content item is going to have lots of direct value, and have that be okay, because it's just part of the buyer journey. It's connecting some of our awareness-based content that does generate a lot of value directly, and it's connecting that to my lead generation content. So it has support structure value. It exhibits the expertise for our business. So it predictably has a lot of value, even though it may not have specific direct value. It may influence all boats to rise on a particular topic, section of a site, or across an entire site because it's so well written and because it's so well planned. And because it covers so many things that people that want to read about this topic care about. And those are the people we want on our site. We're going to nurture them with this page of content so that they're going to read it as part of their journey, trust us more, and we're going to be there when they're ready to convert. Because building authority sets the stake in the ground that we're the expert. We know the topic. We know the topic so much that we've built everything there is to know at the beginner level, the intermediate level, the expert level on a particular industry. We answer all of your questions. We know the specific use cases and the pains. We even think about post-purchase troubleshooting. We even think about people who are already customers and care about this topic and what makes them so excited about this. What's the most new concepts on this? What are maybe things that are out of date? And are we being real to show them that we know them, show them that we're experts on this field, set the stake in the ground and put us on the top of the mountain for this topic so that other people are just trying to climb and figure out, wow, how do they do that so fast, so well, and from such a lens of expertise so often? And really consider ways that automation and natural language processing can help your teams, because there's so many ways that you can evaluate content for comprehensiveness, for voice, for tone, for quality, to understand whether it exhibits the signals that which an expert would. And there's also ways that you can accelerate your brief generation process, building out those outlines, giving you candidate outlines, giving you candidate questions to answer. They're going to speed things up at all stages. The other piece of this is, there is some areas of generation that you need to consider too. This isn't 7 years in the future. You may not be immediately able to start to publish immediate content today, but you may be able to inspire your teams to have less blind spots and comply with briefs. You may get them to the point where you're building, instead of just those 3 pillar pages this month, you're able to knock out 20 or 30 pages that answer specific questions by embracing generation as a way to augment and amplify your experts, because they can look at that draft and quickly tweak it and expand it, add their tuned understanding about a particular topic, and really get it across the finish line quicker, get it to the production team a lot quicker. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and please enjoy the Content Strategy Collective Live event. We at MarketMuse really appreciate all the time and energy you've spent listening to, thinking critically about your content processes. And thanks and cheers.